Yeah, man. Good morning, medics. It is One EMS here doing another live interview on Yoga to everybody. It's on Facebook.com/OneEMS, YouTube.com. I think you have to search One EMS on YouTube. I don't think we have the name there yet. And on Twitter is at We Are One EMS. I think Facebook's We Are at One EMS. Wow, it is too early, Laverne. It's not We Are at One EMS. Twitter's at We Are One EMS. Facebook is We Are One EMS. Anyway, thanks for being professional, Charles. Yeah, you're welcome. So I am here today with Laverne Hardwick again. How you doing, Laverne? Oh, something got muted somehow. There goes the microphone. Now it's back. Oh no, what happened? We had you. No, we don't have you. All right, we're going to work this out. You know, I swear to you, we sit here, we talk for a good 15, 20 minutes. Everything is all good. And then the second we go, the technology loves to challenge us, and we rise above the challenge. Nope, cannot hear you now. Is there, I know you're only using a computer. Is there, oh, wait, I heard something. Come back, no, hit the screen mic again.
How about that?
Right. Yeah, there we go now.
Okay. Unplug.
You know, it you know what? This is what we do as medics. We just
adapt and overcome.
Break. We just adapt. It's all good. So today we've got some controversies to talk about with the National Registry and the state of Georgia and some educational stuff. And then who knows where it'll go from there. But Laverne, you were at Accreditation. Is that how it's called? Yeah, Accreditation. And that is the conference that you're required to go to if you're an accredited facility or want to be an accredited educational facility, right?
They highly recommend it.
Which means, if you don't come, you probably won't get accredited.
Or you don't know what they want you to do. It's kind of one of those things.
Yeah. And God forbid they just record videos and put that out on the web or, broadcast it live because, that wouldn't be a thing. Nobody does that in the post-COVID world. So tell me a little bit about your experience there and what you wanted to bring up from National Registry.
Well, a lot of things happened. It was a pretty good conference. They had a lot of information, if you will, information overload, because it was a pretty long conference, several days, all day. Plus deltas. So we'll start with I'll start with the deltas. The deltas is the length of the conference, and it was an information overload. They gave you a lot of information from the COA, from KHEP, from NHTSA, National Transportation Safety, those guys.
I got you.
A lot of well-educated people talking about a lot of things. And so if I were to say in this generation where we're trying to move toward the younger people taking over for us old farts, that ain't going to get them. They want quick, fast, down, dirty, instant technology. Yeah. Can I swipe it? Can I text it? Can I, you know what I mean? They want that kind of stuff. And a lot of that information, although everybody had a link, it wasn't there because it was a lot of talking in just like every other conference we go to where everybody's talking to a room of 1,000 people or 900 people or what have you. Now they did a great job putting it together. No digs on that. It's like I said, it was very lengthy.
It's just a lot.
It's a lot. It was a lot. Yeah. And in the age where ADHD exists, how much of it was really absorbed. So that's the deltas. And, because I want to end on a positive note. So the pluses, a lot of great classes. They had breakout sessions. I had for the first time a class taught by doctors, and I was overly impressed.
Oh, all right.
The PEP course was taught all physicians taught that course, all pediatricians. I'm into the kid thing. So it was amazing. It was amazing. They were emergency room physicians from all over the country. The lead was from Chicago, and they taught it on a level to where they made us feel like they understood us. We learned some things from them, and they learned some things from us, and it was great. The vendor fair was great. Like I said, the content itself was great. One of the things that I was interested in just kind of talking about is that the National Registry thing. So they're moving to the National Registry, and they did announce that they were moving towards a voluntary accreditation for advanced EMT programs, well, COA or KHEP, more or less, and it's completely voluntary at first. But just like I personally believe, just like the paramedic was voluntary at first,
Right.
and it went from
Right.
voluntary to voluntold. So
Is that like overtime is voluntary at any kind of fire department anywhere in the world? That somebody's working that.
yeah, it's voluntary, and
Yeah.
so eventually, if it takes off, then it's going to become a thing across the country. Well,
Well, I mean,
that's
what would keep it from taking off? People not volunteering? People resisting?
well, it's voluntary now because I think they want to do a test on it. You know, they got to run tests on it and see how well it works. Just like with the paramedic programs, they had to test it out first and see how well it worked, and it took quite a while. But then it became mandatory. So this is why it's confusing to me, because the newest information that's coming out is that National Registry is going to leave it up to the states to decide whether or not they'll allow a student to test National Registry if the program is accredited or not accredited. So that'll be up to the states and whether they'll accept those students or not. So that's confusing to me, because you're moving towards accrediting advanced EMT when all of your paramedic programs are accredited or about to be accredited. And then you turn around and say, well, we'll leave it up to the states to decide whether that's going to be something that's mandatory. So that's my confusion. So I'd like somebody to absolve me of my confusion and sit me down and explain it to me like
Right.
I'm 2 years old, in the words of Jerry Maguire.
It sounds. I've got a screenshot that I'm sending to myself, and that looks like it's from some conference like this. It's a National Registry screenshot, but it sounds well. National Registry is a private corporation, so
Correct.
despite the name and what we think, when I say what we think about it, I mean the well, it's a board that's mandatory. It's because the states have opted to adopt all of their guidelines, as whatever guidelines they've adopted, they've opted to, because it's not an actual federally based system or anything like that. So, as far as I understand, it's no government tie-in at all. And the screenshot that is not sending for some reason is it looks like they want to credit National Registry saying something about wanting accreditation for all levels, including EMTR. But I want to get this, up on the screen here so we can talk about it. So that was at the CreditCon, right? And you said the National Registry representatives were there, but they didn't actually do a presentation or talk about this info.
If they did, I missed it because I didn't catch that at all at the conference.
Okay.
And I may have missed it. It may have been in a different room, a different breakout that I was not in.
So, okay, I got it on my other account. I'm going to download it here. I'm going to upload it, and we're going to see it. My whole thoughts, accreditation just seems like such a huge pain in the butt is a nice way to put it. It's arbitrary. And Tom Camplain, a mutual friend of ours and educator, he talks about that why he thinks accreditation is okay, because it is. I'm trying to get this picture up here at the same time. It is because it's it shows you've gone through steps, right? It sets a bar, a minimum bar, but it's like my point of view, and this is strictly Charles McFall's point of view on it, and it is admittedly somewhat limited. No, that is not what I want. That it's just arbitrary. It's just a thing that's not actually a standard to me. It doesn't feel like, and it's hoops you got to jump through. And people think accreditation means you're a real school, like outside people who are not students yet. But in reality, it feels like it's just a way for the government to say, okay, you've done these things that we have had other people tell you to do, and now we'll let you take government assistance, the all the loans and the grants and the scholarships and whatnot. And I don't understand why we need to go through with paramedic. We need to go through an accreditation board just to get that done. Then you got to go and become accredited as a paramedic school separately. So you got 2 accreditations you got to go through. Laverne, because you went to CreditCon, I'm assuming you've at least worked with schools that are accredited. What is your take on accreditation as a whole?
Well, I've been through 3 accreditations. I've been through it on the college level. I've been through it on the private service level and private service, and now I'm on the government level, the government level with city government level with it. And it's a beast on every level. The initial time that I went through it, actually, when Tom went through his accreditation when he was a director at the college we were working at, man, you want to talk about the manpower hours and pulling all that stuff and all that data together? It was beast like. We worked lots of hours pulling together a lot of data. The same thing happened when I worked for the hospital-based EMS service and did that. We went through a lot. We sat in rooms. We read documents. It's the reading through the verbiage. Not everyone speaks the same way, and they want consistent verbiage with that. They want outcomes. They want you to have all of these metrics for so many years back. And then same thing here at my current employer, where it's government level, and it's the exact same thing. They changed the standards, not terribly. They've lightened up on some and tightened up on others. So I think overall, the premise of accreditation is a good thing because it's supposed to be standardization of paramedic programs.
Right.
However, having worked all three different levels of paramedic accreditation type programs, everybody still does everything. The only thing that's consistent is the paperwork. And even that has some variances to it. But that consistency in the way they want the paperwork, that part is there, but everybody runs their program differently, and it to me, we want paramedicine to be a respected entity, a respected career, one that they look to us and not just say, hey, all you do is drive fast on an ambulance, because people just really don't know that we do more than that. And then they want the paramedic programs to be more collegiate, more degree based, and that kind of thing. But at the same token, one of the questions that I had for one of the people there was, if you want this higher trained, higher level of practitioner, why is the test only supposedly written on an 8th grade level? Those two things just don't correlate to me. And so I kind of got an answer. And what I did find out is that when they're talking about the testing part, when they run the test through whatever mechanism they use to run the test through, they pull out all of the medical terminology words and just run the test through it. And then that's what's on the 8th grade level. Then they plug the words back in so that it becomes relevant to the industry. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes no sense. It sounds like we're on a different page with every aspect of it, whether it be from testing, which is a National Registry thing, from CAHEP, CAHEP is the actual accreditation body. COA is the middleman that gets all the paperwork together, and we pay all these fees for them to get the paperwork together to send to CAHEP, to then pay more fees for CAHEP to give you their annual blessing.
Yeah.
And then down to the school level, because now your students that go to colleges have other criteria that they need to meet to get that degree or diploma outside of the paramedic curriculum.
Right.
And then you come, to your government agencies, where we're just trying to get bodies in seats that have the minimum competency to perform this job, because we have our constituents, our citizens that we have to service. So it's like you have all these different levels, and they're not all speaking the same speak. It's like a bunch of puzzle pieces are thrown up in the air and they're landing in random places. And maybe I'm not high enough on the totem pole to be in the cool kid, one of the cool kids that knows what this one group's thinking or what that group's thinking. I'm just going by what I'm reading, and oftentimes what I feel like I'm reading conflicts with what you said or what's actually happening, and it's making it complicated for us out here that are just trying to educate these guys and get them on their way.
And okay, so even bringing it down to just National Registry, and I may have I may have been told wrong in EMT school. I went to EMT, is EMTI at the time, but EMT school
Me
for
too.
me,
Me
where
too.
I started, was in 1996.
Okay.
And at the time, the way I remember it is how I'll phrase it, because it could have been told to me this way. It could have been I interpreted it wrong, but it felt like, the way I remember it is we were one of the first classes in Georgia at that time period. I mean, there's multiple classes going on at the same time, but we were at that marker that we had to take National Registry test instead of the state board
Composite.
composite board. Yeah, state composite board. And that's how I've always remembered it. That was in one of the first classes. That may or may not be actually historically accurate, but I do remember the whole spin on it, because it was new, at least new, that the medics teaching the class hated this is the dumbest test ever. They just want money. And that's what was built into me was, okay, we got to get past it. And obviously I did. And for those of you taking it now on computers, it's much better now, because it was bubble sheets and a 2.5 hour flip through the papers. And then you had to wait 6 weeks to find out if you got the big envelope or the little envelope. And it was a mess. But they hated it, and they actually all encouraged us to drop it the moment that it came up for renewal, essentially. So, and that's still a case today. I'm not the encouragement part, but it's okay. So we have to pass the test, but then we can, hold on, I'm sorry. I'll get back to that. But then, so we can still just stay certified with Georgia. To get certified with Georgia, you have to get registry. But then once you're certified, you don't have to keep it. And I was like, well, that's not a standard to me. That's just a barrier to entry, if you will. And that's how I thought of it for a long, long time, until I went through paramedic and got that, then worked in many, many years and got out of the field for a while, and then ended up going to teach. In order to teach, you have to have an active license, and I'd lapsed my medic. And at that point, it had been 6-8 years. I'm like, no, so much has changed. I really feel like I need a whole class to get called out with the changes. So I went through A instead. That was my option. I could be a B and only teach at the B level. I could be, at the time it was B, now it's just EMT. I could be an EMT and teach at that level. I could be an A, and then I could take an A classes. I was never an A. I went from I to paramedic. And once I did the A and really dug through and then started building the tests, that's okay. I see the intent of registry, which is anybody can memorize, right? And there's lots of, well, I can't say that. There are people who can memorize and just, they know the answers to the test, but they're horrible executioners of the information. And then there's people who are just horrible at tests, but really are the best executioners of that information. So they're trying to find some way to figure out a real world challenge of what you know and how you think outside the box. And Tom always phrases it as, you got to get from A to D without a B and C given to you. And that, I see that differently for registry, but at the same time, I look at some of the questions and go, well, even in that education of it, I'm like, how's that relevant? Laverne, remind me, you're a medic, right? You made it up to medic level. Why do we need to know all the acid-base balance? What can we do to fix it? Almost nothing. How can we really test it? Almost nothing. You know, I spent a month in medic school on acid-base balance and cell breakdown. I'm like, I almost quit just because it bored me to tears.
What's funny is I have a friend who would come in from time to time when I was leading a class, and he's a retired physician. And I gave him our books because, you know, he was an ER physician for years in private practice, a general practitioner. He looked through our textbooks and he said he literally would go through each chapter and read, and he would take 50 pages and narrow them down to about 5 to 6 pages of notes. And he's like, if they eliminated all of the fluff out of here and just taught you guys what you needed to know, first of all, the book wouldn't be as heavy. It wouldn't be a whole 5-volume set, or in some cases, that 20-pound book that you had to lug around everywhere.
That's what I had. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a 5. I had both actually. And so you wouldn't have all this information. So going into that acid-base balance and Krebs cycle and all those wonderful other things we learn in respiratory and shock and all the other stuff. That's moving toward us doing this on the collegiate level.
Okay.
And so if you are getting a paramedic degree,
okay,
and that's relevant, then that should be part of that curriculum. But if you're getting your paramedic diploma and your job is going to be to understand the pathophysiology of what's happening, stop the bleeding, keep the airway open, fix what you can fix and get them to the hospital, then they can dial it. They really can dial it back. I think that whole acid-based thing and is subjective to the instructor, because some instructors spend, if that's their thing, here's what I've learned as an instructor. Your instructor is going to spend more time on what they feel is their thing, right? Yeah. Because my thing is OB and pediatrics, right? That's my thing. I'm going to spend a lot more time and shock as well. And I'm more of a tactile person, so I love the skill part of it. You can come in and talk for me all day long, and then when you finish, cut them loose to me in the lab. And I don't know if it was Tom or one of the other instructors that was at the school at the time. They said I have a flair for the dramatics because I love doing scenarios. I love doing skills, and a lot of instructors who are more book oriented hate it. They don't like the semantics and the moolah. And so I love that part. So whatever that instructor likes, that's what they're going to put their focus on. So it sounds like your instructor, some of my past instructors, had a thing for acid-base balance because it makes you sound so smart when you understand how to convert. How the whole thing converts.
It might have been a thing, because I can tell you, after I survived that's how I'll phrase it, after I survived that class, I really understood. So when I went years later, went back through and they're right now my brain's not on it, and I don't remember the cascade. There's a cascade at the cellular level that really is where death starts. And like, no, I understand it, and I could teach it better because I did understand what he taught me. Like, you're right. I didn't think about that. You're right. Everybody has their thing. Mine is life balance, and every topic, it doesn't matter if it's trauma or acid-based balance. I am telling you about your life balance and how you as a human being can operate in this realm. So yeah, we all hit our things. So that kind of gives a ground level of this is why we have to have some kind of standardization, right? National Registry can say, well, Laverne, you taught it this way. Charles, you taught it this way. You can't have two different tests. How will we ever know which medics really can do the job? Right. So I get that we all have to pass that test. The university systems seem to, again, limited point of view. It felt like when I went through EMT school and then paramedic school later, I went through a technical college that was testing programs at the time because Hope was paying for it. So they tested an EMT program, Hope paid for it, and they did it in 9 months. And I know they did it in 6 months or so. I don't remember. They did it in a short period of time, and I got a GPA, and I didn't have to do anything extra, but it was considered continuing education. Paramedic was the same way. They tested the class, put us in continuing education. We did it in a way too short a period of time, and that was that. But then the programs were successful. And now if you go to that same college, and it is a technical institute, which used to be a lower level, but now everything's part of university systems and considered somewhat equal. You will have to do math and science and English and English like grammar, then literature, and all these core classes. And I'm like, why? Okay, some of it I can tell you why. You really do need to understand math to be a medic. You do need to write well in your reports, but it does feel like they're grabbing money sometimes. And again, that's a limited point of view. And we're building back up to this accreditation thing. So we're building from the bottom of why you have to do this stuff. Before we move on, I believe you don't currently teach in a university system. Do you feel like that's the way to go? A degree? Because I know David Newton has publicly said he believes, and I feel like it's with good intention that David says this, that he believes that in the future, paramedic should be a degreed program, which he didn't say this. I'm adding this part, much like a doctor and a nurse is. Those are degreed programs. You don't go to technical school and just, here's a nurse class and you're done. You get a degree in nursing, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Well, you can go to a technical. You can go to
a certificate like medic in nursing,
and you can get an LPN.
And that's kind of known jokingly in the field as little play nurse.
Little play nurse. Well, yeah. I won't say that because I don't want to offend any nurses.
I'm not trying to offend anybody, but everybody knows the joke there. Like EMT is the driver. We know that's not real, but EMT is the driver. Yeah.
But and what's so I kind of have Depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to Laverne, the street medic, and then you're talking to Laverne, program director,
Right.
they're two totally different
Right.
people, right? And so, speaking as Laverne, the medic, did I need to go through all of that stuff that I went through when I was in school, but getting my medic? And then I was a lot older when I decided to go back in again,
Right.
come back into EMS and do this all over again. Did I need to go through all that? Yeah, no, I don't honestly believe that. However, moving forward and trying to elevate myself in a career, if I were going to stay on the street level as a transport medic, as a field medic, as just simply doing that and that only, did I need all of those other things? No. Let's be real. There are those that are out there that have doing this paramedic stuff for 30, 40 years and they're still doing it. We got some out there still kicking, and they're the best preceptors ever. And I
Yeah.
love having them precept my students because they give them the real, the down and dirty, and they show them how to do it, right?
And then make
Um,
sure they do it right, because they take a lot of times they take pride in what they do because they've done it for so long.
right. So what I got in the form of education from books and street knowledge, they got from street knowledge. Now, to me, street knowledge outweighs book knowledge. When you're talking about a real hands-on experience, it absolutely doesn't. But if that's where you're going to stay, then that's fine. However, if you choose to do something else, if you choose to do something different, you need those things to do something different. Because in order to do those things, initially becoming an EMS instructor, all you had to do is have your license, pass your National Registry, and yada yada yada, and then
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
God bless
You
you with
can
that.
teach.
And now you have to have to be a paramedic level instructor, you have to have some sort of degree,
Yep.
unless you got grandfathered in up to that point where they were grandfathering people in. And then moving forward, if you want to manage accreditation programs, EMS
Paramedic.
programs,
Yeah.
paramedics specifically, for now, you have to show evidence that you're working on your master's or have your master's or higher.
I did not know that one. I did not know the thing about the
That's
masters.
it's a recommendation, a preference. It hasn't been
Everybody
made
needs. Yeah.
an absolute rule, right? But everybody that I know that's at this level is either doing it or has done it. And, sorry, fly just moved past me. I'm not having a moment.
Did
That
you
was a
spell
fly.
toast?
Yeah, actually, because I just made some. Just didn't get a chance to eat it yet. But it's kind of six in one hand, half a dozen other. I knew for myself because I got back into the game. I was in the game really, really young, got out of it for a long time, came back into the game older. I knew that I was not going to have a 30-year career on the street. I would love to have been able to do that because I miss it a great deal. However, my knees don't miss it. My back doesn't miss it.
Right.
That kind of thing. So I knew for me coming into it older, I had a time frame in which I needed to get my experience. I needed to double time my experience, which is why I chose to go where I chose to go work at, because that place gives you your experience double, triple, quadruple time that you would anywhere else in Georgia. So I went there and I learned a lot there. And then I learned a lot, I earned my teaching credentials as I was coming out of EMT school, actually. And I watched, I had the benefit of being able to be mentored by my same instructors. So the same people who I was learning from in class cut me loose at night to go ahead and teach the EMT students what they were teaching me in paramedic school, and techniques and styles. And that's Tom Camplain, Amy Norton. There were so many of them, but Tom and Amy were my two main
Yeah. Gotcha.
people who I emulate. So if you ever see me in a classroom, if he ever sat in a classroom and saw me doing things, he would start laughing. And actually, I have one of his former students in the class, and she laughs because she knows where I got that from. And so I knew, I'm sorry, backtrack, bunny trail, but
Yeah.
I needed all of those things because I knew my career was not going to end as a street medic. My career is going to end as in administration. And so in administration, I needed to get all those things done. Is it something that we could, well, let me ask you this question. You have fire departments, right? Like my fire department. You have fire departments that we bring our recruits in off the street. They don't know nothing but TikTok.
Right. Right.
I mean, some of them, we do nowadays. We're getting an educated group, though. A lot of these kids come in there, they seem to know nothing but TikTok. But when you look at their resumes, they've been to college. They've sat through college
Okay.
courses and they have degrees and they come in, but they don't know anything about what we do. So we build them from the ground up, right? With
Right.
a core, basic core curriculum, EMT, advanced EMT. They go out in the field, they work, they do their thing, they come back. I assess them. We assess them for paramedic to see if they, qualify to come into the program. And then we put them through this year-long paramedic program. And we're getting good numbers now. We're getting better numbers now that we focus on that paramedic program and putting these medics out in the street. But we didn't do it as a degree-based program. We did it as a certification program. So it works. They don't have to take that advanced anatomy and physiology
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. They can do it with in-house teaching. We have to consolidate it. We don't have the kind of time and resources to teach a whole semester of A and P and patho and all those other things that we had to go through when we went through when I went through a college program to do that. And we don't have to have them take co-requisites or
Right.
extensive prerequisites, but those medics are just as good because when they hit the street, they're getting that real life experience.
You're teaching them what you want to see in the field, which I'm assuming is excellence. And I would hope that especially a department that puts on their own class, I would hope that their goal is excellence. I take this from Tom Camplain.
Mhm.
Is my goal when I teach is to know that when you show up for my wife, my sister, my mom, my dad, whoever, my loved one, that I see you. Oh, I taught you. You're in good hands. I'm good.
Yeah.
I would hope it.
Mhm.
And we know the truth is not every program looks at it that way, but I think
Yeah.
it feels like a majority of those people who pass at least took it that way, whether or not
Mhm.
the program was intended. But that's still not required. Is more knowledge, more education bad? No. Is
Mm.
requiring a highest level of education harmful to an industry that was still in our infancy? I would have to say yes. I mean, maybe not in infancy. We're at best middle schoolers,
Yeah.
as an industry, as
Mhm.
EMS. And so we not literally we should be taught at middle school age, but you talked about how the test is at 8th grade level. That almost correlates to where we are in the field as growing. But this screenshot, so this is from National Registry, coming full circle back to
Mhm.
these announcements and these possible requirements. Before I move on to that one, I do want to touch on what you're basically with your program doing journeyman. If you really think about it, that's how careers used to be taught. If you want to be a doctor, you sat at the foot of a doctor and they taught you every day what they did and showed you and let you understand. And yeah, no, I agree. Me and my wife have talked about this with our kids. There's some professions that I agree. A doctor, I would rather see a doctor has a diploma on the wall than a YouTube 1,000 view whatever symbol on the wall. But there is something to be said about doing as well as learning. Because we all know it doesn't matter what your degree is. We've been to human beings who are like, no, you're horrible at what you do, and you have 50,000 degrees on the wall. It doesn't matter, but it's how you execute it. So all that being said, the fire departments in general, and it's not just yours. I've definitely looked at other departments that have those kind of programs where you can come off the street knowing nothing. As long as you pass the entry test of whatever the barriers to entry is, you're now in the program. And if you pass the test and you learn, you'll become one of the possibly best medics out there if you just apply yourself. And I think that is a good thing. And it does feel like this might be steering away from that. And this is a screenshot that somebody sent me. I hit add to the stream. There we go. This is from the National Registry. Now, this is a singular screen. I do not have context, so maybe you can add context to me. Actually, I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. It says the board actions June 2022, and it has the National Registry symbol on it. And it's the nation's EMS certification, and it's kind of cut off. 22 resolution 13, update eligibility criteria for initial EMS education. I'm just going to hit this first line here. Updates eligibility criteria for all levels, EMR, EMT, AMT, and paramedic, to include successful completion of an EMS education program that meets or exceeds the National Emergency Medical Service Education Standards, which is what we know, right? That is not a change, right? And has been awarded KHAP accreditation or COAMP's letter of review, or has received state EMS approval. Now we know currently, or I believe, and you obviously can correct me if I'm mistaken, I believe that currently that's the paramedic is accredited. National Registry wants to be accredited, but the states can still approve their own program. And actually, the states don't even have to pass National Registry. But this sounds like they're trying to accredit not just advanced. They want to National Registry wants to accredit EMT and EMR programs. Is
Well,
what
see,
I'm reading that screen.
the only thing that I heard was speak of AEMT. Didn't hear them. I didn't hear anything about them moving towards the other two levels as of yet.
Let's see if I can get some news on that.
And then I also yeah. So
Go ahead. You also.
I did receive notification that it's going to be up to the states whether or not they want to approve a program, whether they have been accredited or not.
Oh wow, yeah, this is super difficult to dig through because it's one of those whereas. But it is a big motion. And then the bottom part is just what there is there on the screen. So right there is not really anything extra to add.
So
I don't know.
Back when I first learned how to navigate through some of this accreditation, when like I said, Tom was our director, and then Amy. One thing I took away from that is learning how to do these things. And so what he did and what he said was, so this is how we're doing the paramedic accreditation. Here's how we're going to organize everything. And we're going to start these portfolios and folders for everybody. And we're going to keep everything that way. Right. And he said something that made sense. We need to do the same thing for EMT as well, because it's going to come eventually. And he said that back in, this was 2009, 2010. He said that stuck with me. So any place I've worked outside of that in the education world, I always kept that same portfolio that followed along with the terminal competencies and the order of the program and copies of everything in it. And so preparing for I've been preparing for the announcement of total accreditation for all levels of EMS since I started as an EMS instructor, because I don't want to be cited because we don't have this in order, or we don't have that in order, or I don't want to have to start from the ground up. So if I'm already at the middle point, when they come to me, the mistakes that I have to correct, or the opportunity, I don't like mistakes, or the opportunities for correction, I'm halfway there. At least I'm going in the right direction, because if I follow along the same guidelines with AEMT and EMT as I'm following with paramedic, maybe not content, because obviously the content's greater as you go up. The depth and breadth increases as you go up the chain of EMS. But if I follow the same structure on each level, I think I'm at the midpoint, because it's easier to start from the midpoint than it is to have to start it from the ground up all over again. So
sure. Oh yeah.
This is all confusing to me. I'm just waiting for the answers. I need some answers.
This is gonna change. So I was reading that as Registry really wanted to accredit everything, but they're still allowing for states to approve their own thing, because you have to. All these accreditation boards are private facilities. You cannot dictate to a state, and a state at any point in time as a governmental body can say we're going to do whatever we want. I mean, I believe the state of Georgia had a different testing program before, went to the composites, went away from it, came back to the composites, did registry. I mean, everything changes, right? That's just life. So all these are recommendations, but I read that screen as National Registry is more aligning with accreditation. Apparently, according to this article from EMS World, that is not necessarily the case. So of course, it has the resolution that we just read, which again, I'll tell you if you want to look it up yourself, it is I'll get it to you in a minute, but it's like 22 dash something dash 13. So it's a resolution from National Registry, but it has the screens written out here, the same thing, or has received state EMS approval. Now, the quote from the resolution is: the National Registry of EMTs recognizes that alternatives to delivering and independently ensuring quality EMS educations exist and are worthy of exploration. That's a statement in the resolution, right? According to this article, and we just showed it on the screen. We could.
This is the letter that they sent to all of us. Yeah.
Okay. So the COAMP's response, and that's COAEMSP in case you wanted to look up that board. But their executive director, he's highly concerned, and here's the quote: "The COAMPS is highly concerned with the direction of the NREMT is taking. COAMPS serves to advance the quality of EMS education through accreditation, which serves to ensure paramedic programs meet minimum educational standards and best practices. In doing so, COAMPS advocates in the best interest of patient safety, ensures competent entry-level paramedic graduates, and advances the profession as a key member of the healthcare continuum." And there's a link in this article that you can read the whole letter, but here's another quote: "In the event that this resolution passes, paramedic candidates completing a program approved by their state office of EMS would have the option to take their NREMT exam and become practicing paramedic without graduating from a KHEP accredited or COAMPS letter letter of
LOR.
review, LOR, designated program." So now I'm saying, wait. So now accreditation is fighting with registry because they think registry is giving too much leeway.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's so much a fight. I think they're not on the same page anymore.
Not on the same page. They disagree, right?
Yeah, they totally did. Well, registry didn't say they're doing away with it. They said it's worth exploring. So basically,
yes.
and this is just my opinion, not the opinion of who I work for or anybody else. In my opinion, registry is going back to review the way things were. Let's just say you and I got together and started our own EMS academy, and we wanted to get a paramedic program running. We'd have a lot of hoops to jump through because we don't have we don't have the financial support of an institution or a college, but we do have to get an articulation agreement with a college to say that our program is worthy, our students are worthy to come to their college with what we taught them and to continue on to a degree. So we got a lot of hoops to jump through. Oh, the articulation agreements? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Holy cow. So we have to get a university who's our competitor to say that what we're teaching is fine.
That it meets the standards so that they could give them credit. So what these articulation agreements are is your program meets certain standards. And so your program needs to align with their program in terms of the course numbers and like anatomy and physiology, cardiology. Those are all programs that they teach. I don't know, on their semester or quarter system, however they do it. But your program needs to align with those standards, which usually match the national education standards for paramedic. And then you come into an agreement saying that your students showing a certificate of completion from your program and having successfully traversed the National Registry and obtained certification now qualify to come to that college to obtain an associate's degree, with your program being worth 40 credits or however many credits, whatever they assign. Okay. And that's all well and good. That's all well and good with that. So again, those are more hoops that we got to jump through because we got to make sure we're teaching up to what they're teaching. What I found personally is that sometimes you get the private schools teach better than the instructors at the colleges.
Sure. Not always. As on a human level. Yeah.
It's up to the individual instructor. So where does that become even and level? Does that make sense what I'm saying? So
yes, I understand.
You're gauging this based on X, Y, and Z, but how do you know? How do you know?
Yeah, because there's the human factor, right? And that's the other thing. So to break down accreditation, what I do know about it, lots of money, by the way, like $50,000-$60,000 every year to be.
No, it's not that much. No, we so they send you out a survey, a report, an annual report. You put your numbers in there. The initial accreditation will cost you some money. Yeah, that's
because that's where I was with Tom when he was doing that for his school. And
the initial accreditation costs you. Right, that costs you how do kids say it? It costs you a grip. I'm sure they don't say that anymore, but it costs you quite a bit. It's a financial investment on initial accreditation. Once you get it to maintain it, I don't know if everybody pays the same fee, but it's a set fee once you submit your report.
Okay. All right. And that's a hurdle, right, to get going. And currently, remind me, does National Registry for paramedic level require you to have come from an accredited program to be able to challenge registry?
The state requires it, and if the state requires it, then they go along with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the funny thing
Gotcha.
about it. When I got promoted to program director, I called the state and notified the state. As a matter of fact, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. When I got promoted, the first thing I did was notify COA, and that's the only person that only entity that I notified.
Okay.
Several hours later, I got a phone call from the region coordinator for the state of Georgia telling me congratulations for what? Because first of all, when the state office EMS number comes up on your phone, the first thing you do is panic. You don't sit back and take a sigh of relief, right? No, you panic. And so I'm like, hey, how are you? Good morning. And he's like, congratulations. I see you've been promoted to program director. Who told you that? COA notified National Registry. National Registry notified the state.
That
And
fast. Wow.
that fast.
Okay.
And that's how, because
All
I
right.
guess they're in, and that's how all that went down. And so when you do something, um, if you look and you have access to the National Registry site as an instructor or as a coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I have access as a program director. My access is a little different than yours because I can see
Yeah.
more stuff. And
Gotcha.
there's a whole COEPS and then a whole set of there are reports there. There's a report there that I can run. It's a COEPS based report. So I can pull the data from National Registry based on the COEPS guidelines because they have that algorithm built into it for the program directors to utilize because we have to use that data to do the COEPS report. It is based on your passes, like in the calendar. They use a calendar year, so they're all interconnected in some sort of way. Um, for one entity to call to notify another entity they're all interconnected, and I don't understand what I'm not understanding is how at this point, based on what you just read from EMS World, based on that
Mm-hmm.
being the verbiage that was sent out in an email, um, how if they're so interconnected, are they all on such different pages?
Because the human factor, right? And it comes back to what you said about everybody has their specialty. If you
Yeah.
ask a carpenter what needs to be done, they're going to hammer it, right? That's their specialty. You go to a divorce lawyer and ask if you need a divorce, you're not going to get told no most of the time because that's their specialty.
Right.
And I can see coamps. Okay, whether people realize it or not, this is what we call bias, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And when your job is to bring in money. I mean, my bias when I worked for Tom Champlain at the school, my bias was number one to keep that school running. And that means we had to have students coming in, we had to have money coming in. Then but my heart was I wanted to teach you to be better. Well, and that even as running a company now, I have that issue with some employees. They want me to fix their life. Like, no, I had to have that speech yesterday. It's like, you got to figure out your life because this is business. And if you make me choose, I have to choose the business because I've got all these people to take care of, not just you. And there's that bias. So in this statement, coamps, while I believe he believes what he says about they advocate in the best interest of patient safety, they believe they're the only ones that can do that. Right, because they're the accrediting board. In reality,
No, they're not. That's the thing. COAMPS is not the accrediting board. CAHEP is the accrediting board.
all right.
COAMPS is the middleman.
So they just get the paperwork, but they make a statement of it says COAMPS advocates in the best interest of patient safety, assures competent entry-level paramedic graduates, and advances the profession as a key member of a healthcare continuum.
They do.
So they just collect fees. And
what happens is when you throw your hat in the ring for accreditation, you have the auditor. Okay, let's just say you file your taxes. You make the money. You make the money, right? But getting to the IRS is not your thing, right? So how do you get, because you have receipts and everything, so how do you get all that stuff together if that's not your thing? Is saving lives. Your thing is not putting together these numbers so that you don't get in trouble. So who do you call
go to a tax
specialist? You call in the middleman, the tax specialist. Okay. You call in the accountant. You call in the financial experts. So they are the experts on the standards of how many 12 leads your student should have, or how many IV starts, or how many medication administrations, or how many patient assessments they should have. And they put recommendations out there. So they have the recommendations. These are the recommendations based on the national standards. They do everything that COA sends out is a recommendation, right? So you do these recommendations, then you meet the standard. The standard is what KHEP is looking for. But KHEP doesn't have time to come in and audit every single one of these programs. Hence, for our specific entity.
All right. So I can see where that aligns with the statement there to a point. And here's what clears up for me, clears up this conversation somewhat.
Uh-huh.
And it is where you got to understand, and I mean the general universal you have to understand you're having different conversations.
Uh-huh.
When we go into school, you're having an education conversation. This
Correct.
is what you have to do to meet the standard. When you go on your third rides in school, your ride-alongs, and you're doing the skills. Now you're talking about medicine and execution of medicine. When you're talking about filling out your PCR, you're now talking about insurance and money. That's a whole different thing. And now I can see, okay, well, COAMPS probably does believe, and I agree. I mean, I take them at their word that they are advocating for patient safety and making sure there's competent entry-level programs. Okay.
Through standardization.
But we're having a bureaucratic administrative conversation, not an actual educational conversation or a medical conversation. And now that I understand that's like, okay, I've always felt there needs to, honestly, because I don't know who else could do it on this scale. And I'm not an advocate of big government or anything like that. As people are listening, raise their fist. I'm not trying to make anything political. I am saying somebody needs to be a reviewer that has all of the picture in their purview, in their mindset of actual medical conversations, educational conversations, bureaucratic conversations.
And that's what COA is supposed to be. That's what COAMPS is supposed to be.
Does it play out that way?
I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that because I'm not deep enough into it. I try to float at my level. And what I can say is, although COA, following this Appendix G and following all that stuff, to us, and I'm just going to speak for me, the way my mind works, the way I process things, I'm going 100 miles an hour. So in going 100 miles an hour,
I get you. Yeah.
What COA forces me to do is so I'm this right here. COA forces me to stop and focus on this, and then focus on that, and then focus on that, and keep it in order. And that's where my struggle, and I believe a lot of people that work in EMS, a lot of people that work at this level of EMS are like me in their thought processes. We're so used to being wound up all the time that when I can't function in an unwound state. I just can't. I get confused and the waters get murky if I'm not constantly paddling. So COA forces you to stop paddling and to sit and look and reflect on each individual item, not as a whole, but each individual item. And when you're done focusing on each individual item, then look at it as a whole and pull out what's wrong. That's where the struggle comes in for me. And that's what makes COA and the annual report and all that stuff so difficult, because I got to sit down and go through this with a fine-tooth comb, and it's not just stop the bleed, patch them up, take them to the hospital. It's not that. I gotta sit and think about it. It's kind of like when you first learn cardiology. When you first learn it, it's step by step by step, each little box, each little wave, each little thing, and you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. But then when you get to the end of cardiology, you absolutely love it, because it's really, now that you know all the puzzle pieces, you can put them together.
You see the picture, yeah.
You see the big picture of it, and that's, to me, how I equate the accreditation process and continuing it. It's a lot of paperwork, for one, depending on how big your program is.
Sure, yeah, I can imagine.
And depending on how many students you have. If you have 4 students, you only got 4 students to review. I got 24, and some classes have more than that. And then you got to weed out, well, this one's weak in that area and that one's weak in that area. And oftentimes I'm finding that programs don't have all of the key players that COA suggests we have. Like, they suggest that you have your lead instructor, you have at least 2 adjunct instructors, or I say at least 2, but however many you need to meet your student to instructor ratio. You need to have a separate clinical coordinator for your program, because being the clinical coordinator and do clinical coordinator and adjunct, yes, but being a lead instructor and a clinical coordinator, it gets to be a lot, because now you got to get all of that information to the students. Now you got to sit and fine tune and read every report they submit. And we have these programs like FISDAP and Platinum Planner that supposedly do all of the data, but it doesn't read the report. And I have to sit and read. And if
Yeah,
they had
yeah.
10 patient contacts, that's 10 reports times 24 students. That's a lot.
Yep.
So that's where it gets taxing, because all of these roles to keep these things in order, most companies, entities, agencies don't have the ability or don't want to or will not hire that many people, because you
Yeah.
really need a minimum of 5 people to successfully run a smooth program. And that's my opinion. That's just my opinion. Because each person plays a pivotal role. Now, some people say, well, I can be the program director and a clinical coordinator, or I can teach the class and be the program director. Sure. How much sleep at night do you get?
Or how big is your program?
Uh,
Yeah, is it 5 students versus 25 students? Yeah,
right.
and in a perfect world, we
Uh-huh.
would all do what we love to do,
Yeah.
and that's been the bane of my existence. Is for me to wrap up this whole conversation
Uh-huh.
is inherently because of how I was taught and raised throughout EMS, I resist. Right? Is like, they're trying to do one more thing to us. I was in the room when David Newton made the statement. Oh, in 5 years we want paramedics to be degreed. You need to be degreed. And my hand went up and I challenged it instantly and fought him on it and was a bit of an asshole about it. And later I had to apologize for how I handled it. But my point was, we're shorthanded. Why are you going to make it harder? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But we resist. That's kind of inherent for some reason in our field. But what I've found in my life is, what do I want? Do I want to put out great paramedics? Then show me your hoops. If I can't get through it, I can hire somebody who can. If I can hire somebody who can, or I can just find, maybe I don't do paramedic. Tom campaigned for the longest reason. Everybody goes, oh, do you have paramedic? Do you have paramedic? And he goes, we haven't completed the accreditation program. And it's a lot. And when you're managing, like you just said, I think Tom launches a class like every other month, or actually technically every month. He does an EMT every other month and an advanced like every other month. So he's always launching new classes. So you're managing what amounts to be 100 to 150 students, not all at once, but overall. And yeah, he does have some great staff, but it's how much time do you have? Because he had to have somebody dedicated to moving the accreditation forward. So what do you want? And if you can't get what you want, then maybe you step it back. Anytime, I just don't get butthurt, I guess is what I'm saying about any of this change. I'm with you. They're not on the same page. That's almost like mommy and daddy are fighting, and we just need to know what we need to do to make it through. Right.
Yeah.
Coming down to it. At the end of the day, I think I hope we're all getting into this field when we say to help people, but it's truly to make a difference. And that means putting ourselves aside to be the best EMT, EMR, EMTR, EMT, advanced EMT, or medic. You got to make it not about you. And the problems come when you make it about you. And,
Yes.
this is all, it is confusing. It is where are we going in the field? And is it going to make it better or worse? We don't know.
Yeah.
But ultimately we need to figure out what we want in the field or in our lives, not just the field, what we want in our lives. And does that align with the field? And that's the hardest decision to make. I can imagine, Laverne, you moving from New York to Atlanta and then going from where you were in the field to starting over with EMT and coming back through. That was a hard decision to make. And you had to figure out, did this align with my life? And whatever change made was aligning with your life, and you had to leave what you knew. That's never an easy decision. And so it's not.
It's that. And like, we all got into this, like you said, to help people or whatever. And those of us that got into it, it was watching a medic many moons ago do something, and it was so badass that I'm sorry,
Yeah, you're good.
I was like, I gotta do that.
Right.
And then I did it, left for a long time because I needed, I had to leave the career because I needed a safe way to come home every night to a child. Right. And
Right.
then when he left the nest, I'm like, yeah, I could go back to being a wild maverick and living this life and doing and being that hero. Right now. And, you develop a little bit of the hero complex, but it's not about that. It's about making that difference, because you are the middleman between the definitive care and the time that person has that insult or injury, or you're the one.
Yeah.
And so I have a passion for it. And that's what bothers me, is that nowadays it's become a mill and not a passionate thing. People don't have that passion for, and
Yeah.
they get it from, I got it from watching someone else with that passion. That's how I developed it. And
Hmm.
so nowadays it doesn't seem as if the people are taking the time to, you can't teach the passion. The person has to develop their own passion for it, but you can show your passion for it, and then people will see it and want to be that, want to be a part of it, want to be you. Like it's rewarding to me when I'm at the hospital and my former students come in and they bring patients in, and they, before they even look to a doctor or nurse, if they see me there, I did this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's great. you know, or man, this was my first. I had a guy last week come in, his first pediatric seizure ever. He was so sweating and he was so nervous and febrile seizure. I'm like, you did good. You did. If you didn't get the IV, it's okay. I understand you don't get a lot of pediatric contact, so it's hard and it's nerve wracking, but you did okay. It's okay. And to come in after doing something for the first time and see a familiar face, and me being that I was his instructor, to reassure him, you did good. Because when they're in school, I don't ever tell them that they do good. And the reason that I don't, because I don't want you getting cocky while you're in school, because you get
Right. You
comfortable.
need
You get
to
cocky, you get comfortable.
hungry. Yeah.
Right. And I need you to stay hungry. And then once you get that license, we can become friends. Now we're colleagues. I can tell you, you did good, pat you on the back. Now I don't try to beat people
Yeah.
down in school, but I'm not going to give you that false sense of confidence, because you'll think, well, I got this mastered, I don't have to work at it. No, you still need to work at it every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway,
So what I hear and all that is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you went to a university or a tech school. It doesn't matter if you went through a fire department. It doesn't matter if you're accredited or not. It's about how you view what you do and how you share what you do in the field.
that's correct. We should, all this bureaucratic stuff and all this political stuff with COEMS and National Registry and the State Office of EMS and da 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 da, all of that stuff. That's what we're up here for. We're the directors. We're the lead instructors. We're the coordinators. That should all be up here, right?
Sure. Yeah.
None of that should rain down and affect our students on their day-to-day learning. We should not take those pressures and all of this brouhaha that we got going on at the administrative level, and impart that onto the students. Because when we get frustrated, and those of us that play the dual role as the director or the manager or the coordinator and the instructor, and you get into the classroom, and then your frustrations from all of this then get filtered down to your student's not going to develop that passion for what they're doing. So how do we keep that glass ceiling between the stress and the pressure and teaching the student? That's something that I think that everybody needs to visit. Keep the
That
stress away
that
from them.
And like you said at the beginning of the show, you like to end it on a positive note. And that's a great positive note to end on. Laverne, I think we've got a pretty good schedule for once a month having you in. And it's always a great conversation about these things. And I love having you on. And if anybody, I'll say, anybody watch it, you run into Laverne, you tell her that you appreciate her. You know, even if you're not her student, go, I did this. And oh, I know you didn't teach me, but I saw you. And I want to tell you how happy I am what I did. And we'll do that. The run through for One EMS, of course, oneems.com is where you can find a lot of our stuff. And that is under works. It is growing. It is getting there.
Yeah, I love it.
Social media.
I love it.
And we're at the conferences, right? You and I saw each other again at the last GEMSA conference, and I'm sure you'll be in October.
Can I get a shameless plug?
Yeah, of course.
Charles McFall and One EMS will be at the Atlanta Fire Rescue EMS Instructor Symposium. So if there's any EMS instructors out there, look for the flyer coming out, scan and register, because we got approved.
Yes, awesome.
And so One EMS will be represented there by Charles, and then there'll be a bunch of other instructors. So you can get some instructor CEUs and learn a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm going to feed you too.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. You got me nervous. I saw the lineup of speakers, and I'm talking about online teaching, and then you got Tom Camplain presenting later. I'm like, that man is gonna eat me alive. He's gonna have so much fun. But wait. What did you do about this? Like, you taught me that, Tom. You taught me that. Don't ask those questions.
But yeah, that's the full circle, because Tom was my EMS instructor in school, and now he's coming to teach for me. Hey,
there you go. across social media as We Are One EMS, and anything that you post, we'd love for you to hashtag We Are One EMS. Well, okay, let me refrain. We look for the changes we can make in EMS. So if it's just a gripe post, that's not really what we're about. But if it is an issue, it is a problem, it's a celebration, it's a wonder, it's a beauty. Hashtag We Are One EMS, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere, and we'd love to see it. And we'll see you definitely at the symposium in August. I've already got people asking, how do I sign up to come and attend? I was like, she'll give me the information soon. I'll get it to you.
It just got approved today.
Oh, that's awesome. So awesome. All right. Well, that's One EMS, the voice of EMS. You can check out the podcast version across all wherever you get your podcasts. Soon the videos will be on Spotify, but they're also on YouTube and Facebook. And I'm not sure. I don't think Twitter records, but we're live on Twitter. So I'm trying to be more live every Friday. And we'll have Laverne back next month and really pimp out the symposium. So thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you. Is it off? Is it recording?